With the NFL Combine wrapped up, free agency about to begin, and a major trade shaking up the first round of the NFL Draft, let's dive into an updated NFL mock draft in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube and follow us on socials at Best Available YT. If you're a huge fan of the draft and want to find another way to support the channel, consider becoming a member. I'll leave details on how to do that in the episode description. This is always my favorite time to do a mock draft post-combine and obviously post-trade with the Chiefs and Rams, but so much changes pre and post-combine with these mocks. It's more of media members catching up to what scouts feel. We're hearing a bunch of stuff, and we get testing where we can see, which players are truly standout athletes, whether it's a Sonny Styles or a Monroe Freeling. And we're going to get to a bunch of these guys, especially some of the climbers. So let's go ahead and dive into it. We're going to go full first round mock. I think we have at least one trade in here. So let's go through it. The number one pick, we don't have to spend too much time on it. It is Fernando Mendoza. Huge shocker, I know. He's going to the Raiders. You can hear a billion different shows about, that fit with Clint Kubiak. Tom Brady is an owner. It's clear that Mendoza's hyped up, making some subtle hints about, whether he's first or was it 199th pick, a subtle reference to when Tom Brady was drafted in the draft. Like, Mendoza knows what he's doing. It's so obvious at this point. Someone asked Mendoza if he could get arrested to hurt his draft stock in one of the team interviews. That's just kind of where we're at with him. It's so clearly he's the number one pick. Does start getting interesting at number two, though. The Jets have a lot of needs. They traded away some franchise players to get a draft pick. And here they are, and they can go with, whether it's a linebacker, an edge, a corner. Do they consider another quarterback? Not in this draft class, and I feel confident by the time free agency comes around, they're probably going to take a swing on a guy like a Kyler or maybe even a Tua. But for here, we're going to go Arvell Reese. Shouldn't be a huge shocker. He doesn't necessarily have to play edge for them. And frankly, one of the conversations at the Combine I got a lot of is Arvell Reese more of a projected edge than we're talking about? Really didn't play that many snaps off the edge. And it felt like as a true off-ball linebacker, he started to flash more and more, felt more comfortable with it. And then there's also the concern of him kind of disappearing in some of the bigger games for Ohio State. But that skill set, I kind of like the idea of having him be a hybrid player for a defense that just needs playmakers after losing Sauce and Quinnen Williams and, how much they're kind of tearing down this team to the studs. I think a player like Arvell Reese wears a couple hats for this defense and becomes a very fun player for New York. I really don't care about the arm length for this one. I think he is one of the top 3-4 players in this draft class. It is Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. And for a team like Arizona, where the roster is just kind of void of talent at a lot of spots, I think they're in a situation where they just want to go for, a quote unquote safe player, but just a player that can be really impactful regardless of whether it's on offense or defense. And I just think Ruben Bain is that kind of player. Brent Coleman put it the best when there was all the critiques about his arm length. Coleman was like, yes, but have you considered that Ruben Bain has rabies? And that's exactly how I feel about Ruben Bain. He is a guy that can play on the edge. He can kick inside to a defensive tackle. He is so damn powerful at the point of attack. And a guy of his size should not bend like he does around the edge. The fact that he can win with both power and athleticism as an edge rusher makes him really special. There are a few guys I can see, a few guys that I've watched in my career of scouting that can pull off a hump move like Ruben Bain does, kind of like Reggie White. This is such an impactful player. I don't think he gets enough love because all of the discourse is about his arm length. But when you turn on the tape, he might be my favorite player in this draft class. The Titans are another team that feel like they can go in a bunch of different directions here, but with Robert Saleh coming in as the head coach, I can just absolutely see him being like, listen, I really want a guy in the middle of my defense that can feel like that Fred Warner role. And I don't know if anyone fits that more than Sonny Styles. Just obviously blew up the NFL Combine on that first day of testing. Just, his size as a 6'4", 6'5" linebacker is just utterly ridiculous. He flies all over the field. He's got pretty damn good instincts, trusts his eyes with what he's reading. And then he can just fly everywhere and make plays. With his size and length, he can occupy throwing windows in coverage or just, wrap up ball carriers from all kinds of angles. He is such a fun off-ball linebacker, and I don't even think we've seen the best of him yet. Think that is, with Saleh is one of my favorite pairings as a potential in this draft class. And it is funny that, people are complaining about running backs, safeties, linebackers at the top of this class because of positional value, but that's where the best players are in this draft class. I'm sorry to tell you. To me, Sonny Styles is a home run pick for the Titans. I might be throwing a bit of a curveball here, but I don't think so. Again, we're talking about I don't care about positional value when it comes to the top tier players in this draft class. I am really worried about with the Giants, Cam Scadaboo. That is a really nasty injury to come back from, especially for a player as physical as Scadaboo. And someone as a late round pick, I don't totally trust with that injury to be a featured back. But I love him as a change of pace back, which is why I would take Jeremiah Love. He is one of the 2 or 3 best players in this draft class. I don't care that he's a running back. He is so dynamic. I keep thinking of him as like peak DeMarco Murray with even more athleticism. DeMarco Murray was a tremendously productive player with the Dallas Cowboys, and I think Jeremiah Love can be that kind of playmaker for the Giants. And you put him, not have to give him a full workload, and with a healthy Scadaboo as the factor power pack behind him. I love that pairing. It's a great to have an established run game with Jackson Dart to take some of the pressure off of him, try and keep him healthy, not force him to do everything. Jeremiah Love in New York would be such a favorite, and it feels like a kind of fitting replacement for Saquon, having another special talent at running back for the Giants. I really don't care if I get hounded for this one, but the Browns need more offensive line help. Yes, they traded for Titus Howard, but is Titus Howard kind of what you want as like a staple of your offensive line for an entire unit that's just kind of moving on this offseason? They are really overhauling this offensive line, which is why I want a franchise left tackle or even right tackle in Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. We talked about him in the beginning of the video, but he blew up the combine 9.99 relative athletic score. He's 6'7". I did a full film breakdown on Monroe Freeling. Was that Wednesday? So I highly encourage you to check that out if you want to know more about him. But to me, he has franchise left tackle traits. He moves really well for a guy of his size. He's got really legit play speed and space and can like stick to corners in space. Really hard for bigger guys to like be fluid enough and move well enough to, be that effective in space. Plus, he has some of the best combo blocks you'll ever see on tape. I absolutely love this guy. I think 6 is just about where I'd be comfortable taking him. And for the Browns, do you want a guard? Maybe one of these guard tackle hybrids? Maybe, but Monroe Freeling can scream to me, a guy that could play 10 years as your staple left tackle. If you believe that the development over this past year is legit, which I do. So I'm taking Freeling at 6. You can get mad at me if you want, but I think Browns fans that are in desperate need of offensive line help, if you go and watch Freeling, you'll see what I'm seeing. You'll be pretty excited. A lot of talk about Caleb Downs right now. In this mock, we're going to take him number 7 in the Washington Commanders. Corey Cadan, friend of the show, with Daft on Draft, reported that one scout told him there's some degenerative ACL issues with Downs. He had a torn meniscus, so there's some medical concerns with him. I've not seen him miss games, and every time I've seen him on a college football field, whether it was for Alabama or Ohio State, he's just one of the most rock-solid players, the best safety I've ever scouted in my 13 years of doing this, including ahead of Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't care that he's a little bit on the smaller end of safeties because he's so instinctive. He's one of the best tacklers at any position, pound for pound, I've ever watched. He tackles like a national champion wrestler. He is just so functional and technically sound. I'm a huge fan of his. The Commanders just need some impact players on defense, and maybe I'd think edge here as well because of how, old the front 7 has gotten for the Commanders, but Caleb Downs is one of these blue chip players on a class where I think there's only 3 or 4 of them. And if I'm at pick 7 and I just need an impact player, I'm pretty happy if I'm the Commanders, as long as those medicals check out with Caleb Downs. Tyler Shuck surprised me with the New Orleans Saints. I'm still processing that one. Good for him. I'm pretty interested in seeing how that goes. But losing Rashid Shaheed and having, Chris Olave with his concussion history, I want to get him some more weapons to feel a little bit more comfortable with that, which is why Cardinal Tate in New Orleans would be so damn fun. This is a guy, I don't care that he ran a 4.5. I really don't. He is one of the best route runners, probably the best route runner in this class. He is so fluid, so smooth at 6'3". I love the way he gets in and out of breaks, manipulates guys, and then he has the contested catch ability. I love a receiver. You usually get one or the other. You get a guy that can separate, or you get a guy that can make jump ball catches. He can do both. This is such a rare talent at wide receiver. Him as a number 1 receiver with another Ohio State guy in Olave and Tyler Shuck, who, again, surprised me as a rookie. I think the Saints offense would have a little bit more juice. I'd be really curious to see what that looks like next season. I think the Chiefs are going to take a running back in free agency because in this mock, obviously, but I think Jeremiah Love is not there at number 9. I don't want to disappoint Chiefs fans. That seems like where things are heading. And if that's the case and they get a free agent running back, my number one priority is getting that offensive line fixed. So many injuries on that offensive line last year, yes, but you're going to need some depth because there's so many questions about some of these younger guys. And for me, that means a guy like Francis Maui Noah, which I would be thrilled with because I think he can play right tackle. And if it doesn't work out, you can kick him inside to guard. But either way, so damn powerful at the point of attack. I love having an offensive lineman that when it's like 3rd and 1 and we're having a really condensed formation and we just need that yard, I would with my whole heart trust Maui Noah in the trenches to move some bodies. There are so many instances of that on tape where the defense knows it's a short yarded situation. They're going to run behind Maui Noah and he still gets his pads so low, drives those legs and moves defenders out of the way. That's the kind of guy I feel like this Chiefs offensive line is missing. I would be a huge fan of this fit. Maui Noah is my offensive lineman 1 right now, but I get the lack of length. It's a concern for him at tackle, but I think the fact that he has that tackle guard versatility for a Chiefs team that's, needs to really have a more cohesive offensive line, stay healthy, love putting Maui Noah somewhere on that front 5. One of the things I keep noticing in my mocks, regardless of how it pans out, the Bengals at number 10 always feel like they're in a situation to take a really damn good player. And with Trey Hendrickson, it seems like finally walking after all this trade buzz and franchise tags and just all the constant trade drama involving him. I think we're finally going to get another pass rusher in Cincinnati, which David Bailey is on the board. The Bengals front office is having a party because boy, is that guy explosive off the edge. The worst drip or aura I've ever seen from an edge rusher. Number 31, biker shorts, short sleeves. It's the weirdest look, but he's so damn long, explosive. He can long arm. I'm not as high as the consensus is, but I think the consensus is like he's a top 5 pick. But I still really like Bailey. I love that twitch. I think he can be pretty solid against the run. A fun player that I think is scratching the surface of what he can really be. And for a team like the Bengals, where they just need some pass rushing juice with Hendrickson leaving, Bailey's going to be an awfully fun consolation prize to slot in as a Hendrickson replacement. I know the Dolphins have some offensive needs, but we don't even know what the quarterback's going to look like. And your new coach is a defensive guy. So I imagine that corner is going to be going to the Miami Dolphins. And for me, Mansour Delane is cornerback 1. Transferred from Virginia Tech to LSU, immediately made an impression against Clemson. Another guy that we recently did a video on from that Clemson game. I just love how sticky he is. And when he's not playing man and being sticky, his eyes and zone are great. He really has a good understanding of when in his zone drops he can veer off because he's reading the quarterback's eyes, diagnosing route combinations to drift off that zone and try to make a play on the ball. He's really good at that. I love his instincts. I love, how well he moves, and then he's really damn physical for a guy of his size. He screams cornerback 1 in this draft class to me, mostly because we have some concerns about another corner we'll talk about in a few picks. But Delane, I'm a huge fan of, and I really can't wait to see him at the NFL level. I've followed his career since Virginia Tech. Really, really fun player. So he's going here at 11. This feels like a really no-brainer pick for the Dolphins given the board. Cowboys got 2 first-round picks, and they really need to figure out what to do at edge. And I keep going back and forth on what I want from an edge for the Dallas Cowboys. I like Donovan Ezeraku. I like him as one of these more designated pass rusher types, tinier body off the edge. But if you're going to have a guy like that, in my eyes, you also want a big-bodied edge on the other side, especially on early downs against the run, who can be an edge setter but also provide that pass rushing juice. And for me, Keldrick Falk checks that box. I mean, he's like 6'6". He's a ginormous edge rusher. He keeps his pads down for being so big. He's really physical against the run. He can get extended. He's got a bull rush. I think he can still add more to his pass rush repertoire as far as counter moves and things like that. But he's a really fun player with tons of size. I think he's a different kind of body type than what the Cowboys currently have on their roster. I think he's a really nice fit for that defense, and one that, they talked about when they traded Micah away, which I don't get. I think he's a good run defender, but they want to stop the run. Keldrick Falk checks that box for you. I am higher on Keldrick Falk than the average scout or media member, but I watched the tape. I love competitive dudes on the edge that also stop the run. Keldrick Falk feels like a dream fit for what the Cowboys need. I bet the Falcons are regretting trading a first-round pick for James Pierce. That's still a tough one from last year. But for the Rams, they just get, they had 2 first-round picks. They just traded one at the time of recording this yesterday, 2 days ago. for Trent McDuffie. That's a really nice addition to the cornerback room. But I also think continuing to bolster that secondary and add impact players at safety and corner is going to help make them a even more legit Super Bowl contender, because boy, is that front seven really set and loaded, and the offense is set and loaded. Maybe they go tight end here, but Dylan Thieneman is looking me right in the face out of Oregon, and I am, quite a fan of his. Grew up in the same area that I've coached football in Carmel and Westfield, Indiana. Got to watch him play his senior year, ass kicker. Goes to Purdue, transfers to Oregon. The tape from both of those schools is really impressive. He is super versatile as a safety, incredibly athletic, very instinctive, physical as well. He is one of these kind of do-it-all kind of players, and I don't mean to compare him to another Oregon safety, but I feel like he could play an Evan Williams role, but probably a little bit more impactful, just because of his size and measurables. Really fun player. The Rams would be getting an awfully impactful guy that can move all over their defense. And in today's NFL, where we're getting some bigger personnel, you want safeties you can trust to fit the run. I think he can absolutely do that. I think he can go toe to toe with more athletic tight ends at the NFL level. He is one of these safeties that's going to be really impactful. I've teetered with a couple of picks for the Ravens. I keep going back and forth, but the idea of Caleb Banks in the middle of that defense, on a defensive line that's had some players in the past, but just I think they really need some depth there, and they need an imposing presence in the middle of that defense. Boy, would Caleb Banks be fun. I don't know why he just feels like a Raven to me. When you watch his tape, yes, he didn't play much this past year. Tried to play through injury, just did not work out. When you turn on that tape in 2024, a monster human. Coming in at 6'6" and 327 pounds, moved pretty well at the combine as well. We got him with a 9.84 relative athletic score. He is just a monster of a human being. Someone the Ravens defense would love to add. I just think personnel-wise fits in so well with everything else they have. Would be a really fun pick, and just they need some meanness. Maybe I considered guard here as well. You continue working on that offense, but having an impact like that in the middle of the defense, I think it makes the Ravens a potential Super Bowl contender. I think this is still a really good team. You can go a handful of directions here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but for me, I think when he is healthy and if the medical's checked out, Jermod McCoy is a really nice fit at cornerback. He, on that 2024 tape, man, like he is so sticky. He can high point the football. I like how he's built for a corner. I think he, pre-ACL injury, had some of the best lateral quickness of any player, any position in this draft. He just mirrors so well, reacts to route stems, can break down on them. And then again, when he needs to be physical or go for a contested catch opportunity, he can break up that ball or even get the interception. I really impressed with his tape. Obviously, tons of questions about that ACL. He started practicing at the end of the season. This was a January 2025 injury, I believe. Started practicing with the team, never got back onto the field. But then he didn't show up at the All-Star game, so the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl. And then the only testing he did at the combine was just the bench press. Now, he's saying that he's going to be full go at his pro day and that all eyes will be on that. But the fact that it's been, 15 months, and we've not really seen much, a little bit of a concern. It's just something I'm noticing. Teams know more than we do, though, and I'll always admit that. So on the outside, we don't know as much as teams. But if his medicals check out, pro day looks good, I expect him to still be a top half of the first-round pick because his tape is just legit. After taking Arvell Reese with their first pick in the first round, I love the idea of getting another weapon alongside a healthy Garrett Wilson. I know A.D. Mitchell had some moments, but I would still like another guy with some, this guy screams slot and boundary to me, which is Makai Lemon out of USC. I know he went viral for his presser. There's rumors about him bombing interviews. But if we can get answers on that as an NFL team and we watch that film, I personally love him. You get a quarterback like Kyler in the building. You get a healthy Garrett Wilson at some point. You get Lemon in the slot or, moving slot outside. Your passing game suddenly really, really fun. Membu is an offensive tackle that I think you're starting to trust. He showed real promise last year. The offense is in good place if you get the quarterback right, especially if you add a guy like Lemon. Really, really dynamic receiver. He can, really push the field vertically. He does a good job of manipulating DBs with his shoulders and eyes. I'm not trying to make a joke about his combine where he's doing this at the podium. That's just the kind of the way he operates on the field. He's a really smooth mover, and even though he's a little on the undersized side, when he needs to go up and get a football, he can absolutely do it. really fun player. Big fan of his on the field. So if the interview stuff checks out enough, he should still be a first round pick because he's absolutely talented enough to be one. I feel like the Lions keep struggling to find consistent cornerback play, so I'm going to go Avion Terrell out of Clemson here. Again, another smaller guy, competitive as hell. Like that part screams Dan Campbell pick to me. Plus the need at cornerback, plus the fact that he's really sticky in man coverage. They've just had so many misses at the position. I know that they've had some, retirements and departures on the offensive line, and that is absolutely something they need to look into and add to. But I like Avion Terrell quite a bit, probably higher on consensus than the average guy. But for a guy of his size, when he plays as physical as he does, Terrell screams competitive fire that Dan Campbell loves in his picks. To me, that is a no-brainer pick for the Lions. I think Harrison Smith is finally retiring. We haven't got any confirmation of that, but it sure seemed like it at the tail end of the year. And with that happening, that's such an incredible career for a guy, but they have big shoes to fill. And with Thieneman and Caleb Downs already off the board, I still think there's another safety in this class that's worthy of a first-round pick, even at 18, and that's Toledo's Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. You want to talk about a big body at safety that can also fill the run. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got length. And what I love about him is he's fearless when he's filling from as an alley defender. You're closing in from depth. You got to trigger downhill quickly to limit the angles a ball carrier can get past you. And he's fearless with that, with really good tackling technique at that size. When you combine that size with the technique, makes him a really reliable tackler. Plus, with that length, he's a long strider that can cover sideline to sideline. This is a really, really fun player. I know it's a MAC school guy, but Toledo has been consistently producing DBs the last few years. McNeil-Warren's next up. I think he's a really fun player. And for a defense that's losing a lot of veterans, or they're going to trade and release guys or retirements, McNeil-Warren to me is a really, really good football player that's going to be a starting caliber safety for a long time in Minnesota. Something feels wrong when the Panthers defense doesn't have a true field general at linebacker, and that's why I love the idea of CJ Allen behind a guy like Derek Brown on this defense. One of my favorite stories I heard, again from Brent Coleman, getting 2 shout-outs in today's mock draft, but he revealed when the CJ Allen story that the Georgia defensive coordinator revealed that he didn't really call plays for Georgia's defense unless it was a very specific situation where he had like the perfect call in mind. Instead, he let CJ Allen make all of the play calls, all of the checks, communicate with everyone. That's the kind of cerebral player we're talking about with CJ Allen. On top of being, rangy, instinctive, aggressive, physical, he is really fun. The fact that he is that cerebral as a linebacker does so much for a defense, and if he figures that out at the NFL level, he's going to be a true captain of the defense for the Panthers. Again, I just love the idea of having one of those guys on a Carolina Panthers defense. It just feels right to me. Growing up with so many iconic ones in Carolina, I just think it's a match made in heaven, and I think he'd really embrace that role for a team that feels like it's still on the upswing in Carolina. We've got our first trade here. It's the 49ers trading up with the Cowboys. I'm not going to go through all the trade compensation. We just don't have time for that kind of stuff. This is purely hypotheticals. But with that second pick for the Cowboys, they're cool trading back, seeing where the board plays out. But for the 49ers, they see their guy at wide receiver and know that the Steelers are coming up, probably also in the market for a receiver. So they're going to take a swing. If the medicals check out for Jordan Tyson, man, that's a fun player in San Francisco. He is a good size receiver, really impressive route runner. I thought he improved a ton 2024 to 2025 as a route runner, on top of his frame and athleticism. On top of being really smooth, long strider, can push the field vertically and track the ball well on deep shots. He also, is a ridiculous body control guy that can make some tough contested catches. We talked about his route running, his release package really improved this past season. The medicals are a concern. He's had some injuries throughout his college career. It's probably why you're seeing him a bit lower nowadays than he was at the start of mock draft season. But he's still a tremendous player. If those medicals check out, it just screams 49ers pick, where they're like, listen, we can't wait anymore. We know wide receivers are about to go off the board. Let's move up. Let's get Jordan Tyson. Let's get a reliable weapon. We know it seems like Brandon Ayuk's just done in San Francisco. They've had kind of a revolving door, at the position. I just really like Tyson in San Francisco. I think it'd be a really fun weapon for Brock Purdy and company. Now, just because the 49ers jumped them doesn't mean the Steelers are just going to be like, well, I guess we can't take your wide receiver, because there's another awfully damn good one right around this range I'm comfortable taking in Denzel Boston. I don't see many 6'4", 200-pound receivers also playing punt return. That usually just screams too big of a receiver for me, but that's the kind of way that Boston moves. For a guy that big, he is very sudden, which is hard to see in a skill set for a guy of his size. On top of that, another guy with really good body control to be a contested catch specialist, but he also has that want to as a blocker, and I really like that idea. I know they have DK Metcalf, he's more of a straight line speed guy, also a contested catch guy, but Boston is another big body where you can put both of those guys on the field, condense the formation, have them all really close to the center, and then really get some good run fits, have them be an extension of the run game as blockers. Makes it really fun. I love that pairing. I know some teams like to have a bigger body and then a smaller guy that's more of a crafty route runner, but to me, I don't care, man. Like Boston and Metcalf's a really fun pairing that can do a lot both in the passing game and as run blockers. Chargers fans are probably breathing a huge sigh of relief if Olaivevenga Ioane, I think I nailed it, out of Penn State is still on the board at 22, because they are just desperate for interior offensive line hope. You got to hope and pray for 1 year, please, the Chargers can stay healthy with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater at tackle. Get a guy like Ioane in at guard, this really dense, powerful road grader at guard that can move a little more fluidly or well in space than you'd expect for a guy so dense. He is a really fun player. He was a guy that was interior offensive lineman 2 for me until one morning I was like, I got to go back and watch the tape. Maybe I was just being stubborn about a guy I really like, who I also think is going to sneak into this mock draft. But Ioane, for me, he's so powerful. I love the build. It's exactly what the Chargers are missing on the interior. I don't know if he makes it all the way to 22 on actual draft day, but for the sake of this mock, he's here. Chargers fans probably having a parade after that kind of pick. So many questions about what the future of Philly's tight end room looks like. I believe Goddard is in free agency. I don't know if they have any tight ends under contract currently, but Kenyon Sadiq, if he's on the board, record-breaking 40-yard dash at the combine. If it wasn't for Eli Stowers, he's the top tight end in the jumps as well. But Sadiq, man, you want to talk about like a dream F move tight ends where this guy can play in the slot, he can play as a wing, he can play in line. And I think he's a damn good blocker for a smaller tight end. Like there are times where he gets his hands inside, he's driving his legs, and he's just bringing a defender to the ground. And yeah, he has some whiffs on tape, but like that's every tight end. And for me, a guy of his body type that's still a willing and physical blocker, on top of being a rare kind of route runner in the passing game. To me, that's a dream scenario for Philly. I think he's the perfect tight end for the rest of that personnel on offense, whether or not A.J. Brown returns. But I just love the idea of having Sadiq, being creative with the run game with Saquon and Jalen Hurts. In my mind, if I was a coach, there's so many things I would do with Sadiq in Philly's offense that would make it so much more fun next year. Dream pick, hot take, I could see a scenario where Philly trades up to take Kenyon Sadiq. I just think he's that kind of player that fits so well in what they'd want to do. With the second of the Browns picks, I know we already took Monroe Freeling earlier at tackle. I'm going Spencer Fano. He's a really good player. He's still on the board. And something that, kind of piqued my interest at the combine. He took some center snaps at the end of the day for, testing and everything like that. And for me, I think Fano could still play tackle. I think him and Freeling are would be ideal starting tackles. Maybe Fano on the left, Freeling on the right. But if you want Freeling as a left tackle, and you trust, Fano potentially with that limited length kicking inside to guard or center, I'd do it. He moves really different, so I'm cool with him at tackle. I get the limited length, but either way, like this offensive line needs to be addressed. I don't care who's quarterback next year for Cleveland until that offensive line gets fixed. And I think double dipping in the first round with offensive linemen, stop ignoring a problem that's been an issue, post Joe Thomas for so long. Just really bolster that unit. And I think a pair of tackles, including one that could kick inside to center or guard in Fano, even if he's not the strongest, I'd trust him more at center and then figure out the rest. But I think taking two, top-ranked offensive linemen in this draft class, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Take your medicine, build for next year where you're probably more in the market to take a quarterback in the draft. I feel like every mock draft I do, I take the same guy for the Bears. It just makes too much sense, especially with how they're trying to, I believe move on from Gervin Dexter. I believe that's the defensive lineman they're trying to trade. Caden McDonald out of Ohio State for a defense that had, some really productive linebackers. I think McDonald's a big reason for that. Really big, athletic, powerful presence in the interior of that defense that could, anchor down, plug up holes, and let the linebackers go to work with the upper body strength to really extend and just hold his gap against some of these offensive linemen. He's kind of what this Bears defense is missing. They've got some other questions of what's going to happen in the future at linebacker and things like that, and safety, and their whole DB room's missing. But you want to win in the trenches, and McDonald can do exactly that. Is a nose that can occasionally kick out to three tech. He's the combination of size, strength, and athletic ability makes him a very fun addition to this Bears defense. The Bills just need wide receivers. Brandon Beane might die if he doesn't take a receiver in the first round because the fan base might riot. I love KC Concepcion. I love the idea of him getting, catching passes from Josh Allen. Keon Coleman, I'd consider taking a thicker wide receiver, but maybe they feel burned by Keon Coleman. I'm still not giving up hope on Keon, honestly. But he needs some time. But Casey Concepcion is one of these guys I've loved since his time at NC State. He's a really crisp route runner. He can play kind of like Mekhi Lemon, play slot or outside. His catch radius is way bigger than his size because he's got body control and vertical leaping ability, but he can snap off his routes, and he's got legit play speed to take it over the top. And that's why over some of these other receivers in this class, I'd love him in Buffalo more. He's one of these guys that can take the top off of a defense, and when you have a guy like Josh Allen wanting to push it vertically, Concepcion makes a ton of sense for me. I'm actually going to double dip at edge here for the Cowboys as well. A couple teams with multiple first-round picks where I'm double dipping. Cowboys had traded back with San Francisco, but there's still an edge on the board I'm taking. It's Cassius Howell. I went back and looked at Dallas's roster, and I kind of forgot that, all of their mercenary edges are now free agents again. It's Dante Fowler, Jadeveon Clowney, Sam Williams. Ezra Occo is kind of the only edge out there. The defensive line is pretty well built after adding Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark. Let's get a couple more edges. Cassius Howell's another of these guys, like Ezra Occo, that's a little tinier, but can be a really honestly terrifying pass rusher. Some of the best bend of any edge rusher in this class. He can really just fly around the edge, get underneath an offensive tackle, tighten that path to the quarterback, and wreak havoc. Huge fan of Howell. It's an in-state kid too. I'm sure Jerry Jones will love that. Really fun player. If you've watched Howell, you get it. Just really dangerous weapon as a pass rusher. And then the Cowboys bolster after losing Micah Parsons up with a pair of edges in the first round. I think it would at least calm Cowboys fans down just a little bit. Nick Caserio is addicted to trading away offensive linemen, and we can argue about the value of it. I see why he traded a lot of these guys, but 6 offensive linemen traded in 365 days is crazy. I don't care that they're not true starter level, but you're gonna need some depth, man. But at the same time, there's a guard that I would love the Texans to add in Emmanuel Pregnon, a guy I'm very, very high on compared to consensus. He was the guy I was considering for, guard one, or my top-ranked interior offensive lineman in this class. Really well-built upper body, barrel-chested. He uses that upper body strength really well. I personally think he's a bit more fluid than consensus seems to think that he is. They think he's a bit more stiff, but he can really move bodies in the run game. He can climb to the second level as a combo blocker. He's got an anchor in pass pro. This is a guy would be a really nice addition because they got to protect CJ Stroud. If you're going to keep trading away offensive linemen, you better have a plan to replace him because you can't keep letting CJ Stroud, be this under duress. It's destroying his confidence. We saw a really down year last year. Adding a guy like Pregnon and rebolstering that offensive line could help him out quite a bit. After trading away Trent McDuffie, the Chiefs, I considered putting a defensive lineman here, but I think adding a corner after losing McDuffie makes sense using that pick to get younger and just stay cheap at the position while still having, good talent. Colton Hood really checks that box for me. Nearly 6 foot, good size, really well-built frame, and he is twitchy, so he can trigger downhill really well, help and run support, and has enough of the movement skills to still, stay in phase and man coverage, carry up vertically in zone. All of that, good corner. He's no Trent McDuffie, but I know McDuffie might be on the downswing. He's about to get really, really expensive. So give me Colton Hood as that replacement with that extra first round pick, just so the Chiefs can continue having some talent in their secondary. Another trade here. The Broncos are trading out of the first round, just a few spots down to 34, and the Cardinals are going to climb into the first round. You can probably guess why. No Kyler, he's just been released. Jacoby Brissett likely not coming back. They have no real plan at quarterback, and I don't think they want to spend a bunch of money on a free agent guy. I think they're okay taking a swing given the talent level on a quarterback, which brings us to Ty Simpson. If you had told me at the beginning of the year that he'd be a first round quarterback, I'd definitely believe you. And then the second half of the year happened. It sounds like, really banged up, played hurt, got gastritis from painkillers, dropped a ton of weight. A lot of factors that happened. Plus, just the offense in Alabama was extremely disappointing. All of that being said, when he is at his best, he's really exciting. He's someone that's mobile enough, accurate enough, can throw accurately on the move. There are some flashes of throwing under duress where he throws some pinpoint accurate passes. Only 1 year of college experience is a bit of a concern. He is smaller, but he's definitely bigger than Kyler. And for the Cardinals, I think you trade into the first round to take this, because if Simpson does work out, you get that fifth-year option. You get 5 years of cap-controlled quarterback play that, if it works out, sets you up to really be in contention in your division for the next 5 years. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, and I'm not saying Ty Simpson is a true first-round pick, but for a team where you just need some swings and some things to go your way with a new regime, I think at least taking a swing on Simpson this late in the first is absolutely worthwhile. And if it doesn't pan out, you can just kind of wipe your hands off of it. You do not have to pick up that fifth-year option, and you can continue looking at other quarterbacks. I think, to me, this is a pretty low-risk decision, and I don't think you have to trade up that much just to go up 4 spots to get that fifth-year option for a potential quarterback. My pick for the Patriots has changed as of late because Morgan Moses retired at right tackle, and that's a pretty big loss for a team that has some offensive line needs. However, I think there is a perfect, safe right tackle late in the first round you can take that you feel pretty comfortable immediately slotting into start. And that's Blake Miller out of Clemson. This is a 4-year starter at right tackle for the Tigers. And if you watch the tape, way better than I was expecting once I turned it on this past year. He's really strong. He brings his legs through contact to drive defenders out of the way in the run game. A bit more fluid and athletic than you'd expect for a guy than when you just kind of see him. And maybe he's not the most fluid, but this is kind of a staple right tackle where Justice Mosqueda and I, in our latest episode of Draft Talk, we did, an hour 10 on offensive linemen. We really like Blake Miller. He's just really rock solid across the board. He's super experienced. I feel like he can play right away with that much college playing time for in the ACC. Give me Blake Miller. I think it's a really safe pick. Maybe the Patriots want to be a bit more aggressive with the swing, but Moses retiring is a big loss, and I like the idea of Miller just slotting in at that spot. What do the Seahawks do? The Super Bowl champions, not a ton of needs. I wouldn't take a running back in the first round. The name I keep thinking of, because it sounds like Shaheed might hit the open market. I love the idea of pairing Jackson Smith-Njigba with Omar Cooper out of IU. And yes, I'm a little bit biased as a Hoosier, but Omar Cooper, man, this is a guy that is really physical, got great body control. That catch against Penn State's obviously his most famous play, but he moves really well for a guy as dense as he is, and he is a rock solid, excellent run blocker. He will throw his face into blocks. I love a guy that can move, can make tough catches, but also assist and run support and want to assist and run support. He's checked a lot of boxes. I was shocked at how many people I talked to, whether it was media or scouts or anyone at the Combine, how much they love Omar Cooper, and I'm fired up about it. I think it'd be a really fun pairing for the next few years with Jackson Smith-Njigba. And there you have it. That is our full mock draft for today. Tried to make sure I went a bit more in detail because of how many things have changed throughout the mock, and just with the Combine and the trades. A lot of really exciting stuff to come. I'm actually, because it's such a weird draft class, it's more excited than I've been for a draft in years, because it's going to be weird. The positional value arguments, the length at some positions for really solid players. You're going to see some craziness come April. I cannot wait. So thank you for watching today's episode and sticking through this mock draft. Let me know what you do different, what you really liked, anything that you have thoughts on with this mock in the comments. No mock's going to be the same. I want to be different. I want to stick up for players I really like. So if you disagree, I hope you at least understood some of the reasoning behind it. And I'm sure the comments will be very sane and rational, like any mock draft I've ever done on YouTube or ever written in my 13 years of doing this. It's always very, Very calm, very reasonable comments. That'll do it for today. Thank you so much for watching Best Available. We'll be back next week. I believe next week's linebacker week over here. So we'll be talking tons of off ball linebackers. Can't wait. Thank you for watching today's episode of Best Available.